Bless you. All right. I'll turn this up. Get that maximum performance. Take it back. Full brightness so I can see. Cool. Good morning, everyone. And today I'm going to be giving a talk about Sentry, or how I learned to stop worrying and delete my accounts. I'm Michael West. I also go by Tabor Kitten. I'm located in Dallas, Texas. I work at a tiny little startup that nobody's ever heard of called CyberArk. I'm just doing kind of like consulting type stuff. I've been doing IT, I've done DBA, I've been a software developer, and now I'm doing InfoSec. I've done it all professionally for about 6 years now. And then some AOL keywords about stuff I'm interested in, like space and Twitter and barcodes and storms and stuff. I'm from Texas, so this is literally my first time ever seeing like an ice storm warning. So I have no idea what to do. I'm driving a Subaru, so I assume I'm okay. And there's proof I do leave the house on occasion at the Space Shuttle Linus. So does anybody remember this GIF? It caused a big shitstorm last year, and it's because Trump tweeted it. So you can see, I mean, like 350,000 retweets, 580,000 likes. And of course, it caused a big kerfuffle because back in, July, when that was tweeted, things were going kind of tense between the mainstream media and Trump and all that jazz. I'm not going to get into political stuff. I just want to show this an example. Well, the funny thing about that GIF, it was posted by a Reddit user. And after this Reddit user, he just posted it because he posts GIFs and stuff. And then Trump tweets it. Nobody really knows how Trump got the GIF. Was he reading Reddit, or just, where did it come from? We don't really know. But CNN found out who posted it, who created it. And so what they did is they doxed him. The username was Han Asshole Solo, and I love that they censored out asshole right there. But more or less, this guy just posts, kind of a lot of racist and anti-Semitic GIFs and imageries and stuff on Reddit. And, it's not really under his real name, it's under a pseudonym. But CNN found his account, and then they found who owns the account. And they kind of, this isn't really like official, but they more or less blackmailed him into apologizing, or else they were going to publicly dox him. I don't think they ever actually publicly doxed him, but he did apologize. And how did they find his information? They used, bits and traces on his Reddit account. Even though he was just posting on this random Reddit account and just like left a little bit of the trail of information, the journalists found it. And this leads me to a phenomenon I call kind of incidentally becoming viral. Here we have Sarah O'Connor talking about a robot killing a worker in a VW plant in Germany. Which, haha, Sarah O'Connor, Terminator. And you see, it got her some attention, and she tweeted like, "I'm just a journalist, guys. You're probably not going to be interested. I talk about like work stuff in Germany." But this happens to quite a few people. We had Ken Bone back in the 2016 election cycle. Everyone loved him because he seemed so innocent and sweet and all that on the TV interview. Then he did a Reddit AMA using his Reddit account that he uses to browse porn. And so people found that he kind of likes mpreg porn, and he was commenting on it and stuff. And it was, it's like who cares if you're into that stuff? But because he became incidentally infamous, people found that account and they linked it to him, and now everyone was talking about all this weird stuff that he's into. And welcome to the Bone Zone. Could probably use a rebrand. And this includes InfoSec researchers. If you guys are familiar with Marcus Hutchins, or Malware Tech, or Malware Tech blog on Twitter, he's that guy who does a lot of cool malware research. When WannaCry first came out, he took apart the code, found that it reaches out to a domain, and checks if the domain exists. Now, the reason for that is it's trying to detect if it's in like a sandbox environment. Well, he goes ahead and registers it. Oh, they forgot to make the code to make it random, so now WannaCry was kind of stunted for any machine that had internet access. So he was called the WannaCry hero because he basically disabled it because of a bug in their code. And not only did he disable it, but then he started doing research, and he tracked everything that came to that domain and published it. So great stuff. He actually got doxxed because of that, unrelated. But he's like, I forget how old he is, but he lives in like the UK, lives with his parents, and does like freelancing stuff. He's not like a big spender or anything. Well, he came to DEF CON last year, and literally the day that he left at DEF CON, he got arrested by the FBI, who claims he wrote the Kronos virus, which is used in banking malware. Now, I don't want to say like whether he did or not, because I have no clue. I'm not really into the malware scene. But what happened is because, while he was in Vegas, I mean, the guy lives with his parents in the UK, but he came and did some cool Vegas stuff. Like, I would love to do this stuff. He rented a supercar. He went to a shooting range. Literally, that's like, it costs like $500 to do that first thing, and then $100 to do the second. I mean, I know I'm from Texas, so you can assume that I've shot tons of guns, but I've only shot guns twice in my life. But when you're in Vegas, it's kind of like what you do on vacation. And he posted these things kind of innocently. Well, of course, then he got arrested afterwards. And while he's arrested, can't see his phone, can't do anything else really. And what happens in Vegas can be publicized after your arrest. Some magazines or some internet news sites were talking about, this WannaCry, this big baddie was spending big in Vegas before he was arrested. We're not saying he's guilty, but I mean, wouldn't a guilty man drive a supercar? I don't really get the logic behind this, but it's what happened. And this isn't just limited to, being arrested by the FBI. It can happen just because your name gets in the news. So I've always wondered, what if it happens to me? I'm a pretty paranoid person. I feel like to be in InfoSec, you need to be paranoid because that means you have a low risk tolerance. And I've got a really low risk tolerance. So my risk stance is kind of unoptimized. Everything's kind of tied to my name and everything's there, and even my website has my phone number. It's Google Voice, but all that's public. So what if something like this happens? And this is a real article about a Michael West who lives in St. Louis who's 40 years old, so probably wouldn't be confused with me. But actual pedophile in St. Louis with the same exact name, same initials as me. What if it was not a 40-year-old in St. Louis? What if it was a 30-year-old in Dallas who maybe was in IT? That could easily be connected to me, even though it wasn't really me. That could just, and suddenly, I've got reporters calling me, I've got people going to my parents and stuff. You literally go to my Twitter, click on my website, and you can go to my Facebook, and then find my parents, and then start messing with them. So there's really, I would say it's not an optimized risk stance. I'm paranoid, but I'm also a pretty public person. So the current solutions and the name of this talk, Sentry, or how I stop worrying and deleting my accounts, based off the Stanley Kubrick film, Dr. Strangelove. So the current solutions are censorship. You can just make sure you never post anything that could eventually become against you. You could compartmentalize stuff. So, if you're worried, don't make your Pornhub username the same as your Twitter username. Kind of simple stuff like that. I mean, you can also do what I call become a hermit. And that just means you either don't use social media or you just go under a pseudonym the entire time. I mean, that's okay, or you just make your account private. But I feel that most of the value of social media, the reason I love Twitter is because you can engage in conversations with people in the community and especially in the security industry. So if you make it all private, you're losing that benefit. And then finally, what I just call nihilism, which is where you don't worry about it, which I'm guessing most of you probably fall in that category, unless you're kind of paranoid like me. But I wanted to present a third option, because I feel like these aren't great. These are the situations where it's no win, like in Dr. Strangelove. So something different is called Sentry. So Sentry is an application I wrote that watches for certain criteria that you specify. So something like you tweet a trigger phrase. It's kind of like a safe word, but the opposite. Or maybe one of your tweets gets 1,000 retweets or more, or you specify it to 10 or more, or whatever it's your threshold. Or maybe it gets a ton of likes or something. That could be unusual. Maybe you tweet a good joke and it just happens to go viral and tens of thousands of people are looking at it. Think of the Wendy's Twitter guy who got 2 million retweets about chicken nuggets. And imagine making something simple like that and suddenly it blows up in your face. Some people may like that, but that can bring a lot of unwanted attention, especially if you're like me and you've got kind of a public stance. So what Sentry does, and it can also be tweeted by, it also run by your own script as well. So if you have your own like weird scenarios about when this moon is in alignment with the stars, you can do that too. But it triggers a cascade of actions, and you can customize different actions for different criteria. Some of the things we can do is, for example, lock down your accounts. Maybe set your Twitter to private. You know, turn off your website so like nobody can, my website where I had my phone number and stuff, like just make that go away. Temporarily, obviously. And then, you know, if you don't have an option to like make an account private, like Twitter's got that, Reddit doesn't. You can't really make your account private except by deleting your comments. So you can do that too. Reddit Sport's not quite in there yet, but that's an example of one thing we do. And finally, we can just, you know, straight up delete accounts if that's the right option. I give the example of the gay furry account here. And it's not because I have anything against furries or anything, but I know there are a lot of people, and furry is a great example of fandom, where they're like, there's a different persona for the, like, they use like a private account, like not attached to their real name, like for their furry stuff, and then they have a personal account with their regular stuff. You know, maybe they just don't want to mix the public and the personal. But what if you're in a scenario where, like, I guess you could say shit hit the fan, and you need to clear that link because maybe you're getting too much attention and you're worried someone's going to go find this. Maybe that'll be detrimental to your career, your life, or whatever. So we can just delete that account if we need to. So the nitty-gritty of it, it's coded in C#, but it's using .NET Core, which .NET Core is Microsoft's open source version of the .NET CLR. So it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Haven't really tested on Mac. I could use some report feedbacks on that. But we basically configure it with just some JSON, and it can be called by other scripts as well. We're using Selenium to actually automate websites when that's available, and then Rust Sharp whenever we need to use like a JSON API. And there's a simple example of one trigger. This doesn't include everything in the config file, but it's pretty basic. You can see when it says wing attack plan R, which is from Dr. Strangelove, and it checks my public Twitter. And when my public Twitter, when it sees that's posted, it will lock my public Twitter, and then my sinful Twitter, maybe that's my gay furry account or whatever, it'll scorch it, which is what I call for like deleting all your posts, kind of like scorching the earth, and then it'll delete the actual account. So it'll just log on to Twitter for you and click delete. So let's do a quick demo of Sentry and what it looks like. The whole point of Doomsday Machine is lost if you keep a secret. In this case, you might want to keep this secret anyways. But so we've got 3 Twitter accounts here. One, this is my regular account, T3HUB3RK1TTEN. And then we've got this random account, and this is just an account just to mess with and play around with, so it doesn't like delete my entire Twitter history. And this is just uberkittencom, and it's just got a couple tweets here. Nothing really useful. And then we've got this other account, this sinful account, that's delete me senpai. And we're going to be deleting that one later. So we'll look at our config JSON right here, and we can skip through some of this. What we're going to do is we're going to trigger when the tweet contains at BSides Rochester sup. We also have this in here, but I don't think we're going to hit 10,000 retweets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, we're not going to hit that. So what it's going to do is it's going to check my main account using the API, because Twitter does have a great API. It's just not perfect for everything. For example, you can't delete your account over the API. So we have to scrape the web page. But here it's going to be checking for the API. It's going to be looking for this string. It's also going to be checking for these, but we're not going to hit those. When that happens, what it's going to do is it's going to go to that uberkittencom, this second Twitter account right here, and it's going to lock it. So we'll see that account. It won't be visible from the public. Then it's going to go to my main account. It's going to post a nice little message. And then it's going to go to my website. And I don't want to take out my website right now because I do link it in the end, or else I would. So instead, we're going to take out sentry.mwest. Right now, it's pointing to 5.555. And let's assume that's correct. I know it doesn't go anywhere. We'll show how it changes, just so you can show how you could change your root domain or www. So we'll get started. So we'll go to Sentry here, and I know I'm using Visual Studio here, but of course you can run it from the command line. But I like clicking the button. So several things are going to happen when we do this. When it starts up, it's going to load the services, and it's going to start verifying them. Now it verifies them to make sure that they're all the it checks the APIs, but there's really not anything to show there. And then it's going to check that it can log on with Selenium. Now, since we're in debug mode, we can actually see Chrome here. But in release mode, it runs as headless, so it doesn't actually show anything. But it's great for example here. So here it's just simply logging in as uberkittencom, types in the password, and then it verifies that it's logged in. And then there is a second Twitter account in there, the delete me senpai one. And next, when it finally gets around to it, it's going to start logging into that one and verifying it too. You see right there, it's verified the API. Now it's verifying the web. And this verification process is just to make sure you didn't mess up in your config file. So you know that before you actually need this kind of thing. So next we're going to log in as delete me senpai. And we're set. And each of these Chrome processes is running completely separate cookies. So you can have as many of these as Twitter will reasonably allow you to have, or as many as your host could support, I should say. So now these ones are sitting here, and we're starting the main loop. And we also verified the Cloudflare. So what's happening is every 15 seconds, because of how this is configured, it's checking those two things, or it's checking this criteria right here. So we're just going to simply say, what's up, BSides Rochester? So that's going to happen. And we'll see how long it takes. Should be about less than 15 seconds, hopefully. Oh, it's already detected it. So now it's going to post a Twitter status. It's going to update my A record. And it's going to lock this Twitter account. He checks the button, types in the password. Wait for it. There we go. And it's locked. So now we'll go over and we'll verify that. So we can see right here, hey, look, a tweet. You all can see I didn't type that, so must mean it worked. And then this account, the uberkittencom account, the one we wanted to lock, is now locked. So we can't see the tweets. Now you'll notice that it does still have the tweets there. So even if you lock it, that doesn't mean the tweets are gone. So what can we do next? We have a second trigger here. You can have as many triggers as you want, as many actions as you want. And we're doing is wing attack plan R. Now from Dr. Strangelove, that was the command they gave to send out all the bombers to nuke Russia. So here we're going to use that to delete our tweets and delete our Twitter account. So as soon as I type this, again on that same account, and it doesn't have to be, the whole tweet, it can just be part of it. It's going to check my uberkitten account, my regular one. On that uberkittencom account, it's going to scorch it. So which I said before, that means just go and delete all the tweets. Currently there's 4, but I've tested it up to several hundred. Twitter has a rate limit of like 900 every 15 minutes, so it can go through pretty quick unless you have literally thousands of tweets. Then it'll just wait after it gets rate limited. And then we'll go to delete me senpai on the web interface, and we're going to delete it. Now, Twitter kind of does the Facebook thing where you deactivate your account, and then once you log in with the same username and password within 30 days, it reactivates it. So if you wanted to implement this, I would recommend using Scorch first, and then deleting it. That way, you can make sure your tweets are actually gone if you really do want to get them gone. But we'll still delete that account. So now all we got to do is tweet this fun little phrase. What could go wrong? And we'll go back over here and wait for it. Okay, yeah. So it's just, that was just the output from before when it was running, and we're just waiting for that 15-second loop. Normally you'd have it longer than 15 seconds, but in this case we want to do it quicker. So you can see right there it's deleting my Twitter statuses on that account, and here it's deactivating delete me senpai. Sad face. Goodbye, delete me senpai. And it's gone. And so now if we go back over here, we can see, well, it says one tweet, but that's because Twitter always says that. If we log in as that account, which we are right here, and we look at the profile, all the tweets are gone, even though we just saw them over there. And delete me senpai, uberkitten's sinful account right here, where I'm just confessing to some unsavory activities, don't mind me, is gone. Now, of course, as soon as I log in again, it's going to reactivate this account. But I assume if you're deleting it, you're not going to want to do that. Or you may want to do that. I mean, if you want to delete your account, just reactivate it within 30 days. Just don't take longer than 30 days or they will release your username. So that's most of our demo right there. Oh, and one more thing. Did we show we didn't show the change in DNS. Forgot that one earlier. So here we've changed it to 1337. So you can see it did update my Cloudflare records. If I'd set this to like my www or the root domain, it would have killed access to my website. So that one's all working. We'll go back over here. So just a couple things. There's a lot of features in this, but there's also a lot of stuff that's still working to get in progress. The first one right there is called Just Fuck My Shit Up Fan Mode, and we'll get in that next slide. But the current features, we've got Twitter via the API and via the web. We've got Cloudflare to update and delete DNS records, and Pushover. Pushover is a notification service. While that was all running, I got notifications. Sentry has started. This service has been triggered. This service has been triggered. And that's eventually going to be used for multi-factor support. Currently, can't do multi-factor. It's kind of tricky because of the way this is designed to be set up on a server somewhere. You don't want to give that your TOTP codes, because what if someone gets into that machine? And speaking of getting in that machine, what we're going to do eventually is add conjure support, so you can store your secrets securely and easily away from the computer where this is running on. So it'll call the secrets whenever it needs it, and doesn't actually have to store it in this plain text JSON file. But you can see I've got this one over here, and then I've got a clean one here where all the secrets are removed, and it's just gross and nasty. So that's coming away very soon. But next up, we're adding multi-factor, Reddit, and email, because I get a lot of requests for making this a dead man switch. Now, eventually this is going to be clustered, so you can have like dozens of these programs running on different machines, and they'll all play nicely in figuring out who actually should do everything. So that way, if something goes wrong or internet's blocked or something, it'll still work. But that makes a dead man switch kind of tricky, because now you've got like 30 machines that are all going to be pinging you, asking you, are you around? So there are other services that do dead man switches, and it's pretty simple, just going to integrate with them by email. They can send an email when you don't respond, so if you really do want to have like I haven't responded in 30 days, so email, and then have this thing actually go and delete your account. Or you can use the calling it just by yourself mode. Speaking of which, the Just Fuck My Shit Up fan mode. So this one is pretty great. It's great for testing. It's also great for just automating. What this will do is it'll run every action configured. So in this case, that config file, if I ran it with this, it would go and post on my Twitter account. It would delete me senpai. It would lock the uberkit.com. It would delete all the tweets in uberkit.com. And it would just do all that, ignoring any kind of trigger. So it's great if you want to run it from your own script, and you can just pass in your own config file or just some JSON. So just put some JSON together, call it this. So that way you can just run, you don't have to deal with using Selenium and stuff. If you just want to lock your Twitter account because you ran a Python script, go for it. And then Conjure, which I mentioned, just want to get into a little bit. It's made by my company. It's open source. It can basically store all your secrets somewhere else on an encrypted server, and then authenticate requests for that. This is what it's going to look like, but it still has some trouble because .NET Core is a little bit funky. So, I have to actually convert the API that they use to .NET Core. I'm still working on that. That's what it will look like eventually. So then your config JSON will be clean of secrets. So the code, you can get to it there on that GitHub link. And if that's kind of hard for you to type, you can go to mwe.st/GitHub. A little bit easier to remember. And me, I'm Michael West, uberkitten, as I mentioned. Here's what it looks like on GitHub. And so we've got some features, but here, let me go over what it looks like to build and run it. So building, I highly recommend at this stage right now that you have a little bit of programming experience. It doesn't have to be a lot, just to kind of troubleshoot and see what's going on. I'd recommend building it yourself, because do you really want to trust random DLLs from someone on the internet to handle all your accounts and stuff? I mean, I just built it like an hour ago and uploaded it, but Visual Studio has a free community edition, so you don't have to pay for it anymore, and you can run .NET Core apps. If you just want to run it, or maybe you build the binaries yourself and put it on like your Linux machine, then you can just install the .NET Core runtime, grab the Chrome driver. For Windows, there's one included. For other machines, it's just as simple as going to this link right here. And then simply, it's just .NET Sentry.dll. .NET Core is kind of funny in that everything's like a DLL file, and then you run it with .NET, the command itself. Make sure to edit that config file. There's an example config file that has literally everything supported, which is kind of overwhelming, but there's a lot of stuff in here. For example, here's how we can change the Cloudflare with regexes. But once you edit that, other things, it has a integration with nlog. So all this stuff is actually at the info level. So nlog allows you to configure, like, say you can set errors to go email you. So every time this has an error, it can email you the whole exception and everything that's going on. Or maybe you can have it go into a log file, text file, and have it rotate. Nlog is just like a super configurable way to set up that logging. The only thing is make sure that if you have trace enabled, that you keep it secret, keep it safe, because trace level includes your secrets. And then finally, still working on that multi-factor support. So when you run it in debug mode, like I did here, it does start up a server, doesn't do anything yet. Should have put that in a branch. Oops. Oh well. But that is Sentry, and there are the links if anybody has any questions or thoughts or feedback. I would love to get some feedback on what are services to add, because for me it's like Twitter and Reddit, but I'm curious what is it for you guys. Go ahead.
The mwe.st/github/twitter don't work, right?
They don't? Oh shit. Cool. They used to work. I must have broken it sometime. Well, I guess we'll just have to go the hard way and type out the whole T3HUB3RK1TTEN, or just search Uberkitten. But any other questions in your comments or feedback? Awesome. Let's get you guys to that keynote.